Hello, everyone. I'm Rose Gerber. I'm the Director of Patient Advocacy and Education for the Community Oncology Alliance. Thank you for joining us today. And always thank you for all the times you've joined us in the past, the many times you look at our videos online, and just basically participating. We're proud to have you with us. Today you can see our topic is a really interesting one, the psychosocial impact of cancer. And I'm excited to have an incredible guest from CancerCare, an organization, a national organization that has been around for a very long time, and we are proud to partner with CancerCare on various initiatives. Many of you know Trish Goldsmith, the CEO of CancerCare. Today we have the Director of Advocacy, Rose Gerber, and I hope I pronounced her name right. If not, she can correct me later. Beautiful name. This is a very interesting topic, and I'm really excited to learn more from Lauren today. Can we go to the next slide, please? As I do with every one of our advocacy chats, I like to give you a brief update on what is happening with COA and with CPAN. Sometimes I have a lot of news, sometimes I have just one piece of big news. And I'm excited to share, I've already said excited twice, so this must mean I'm really excited, that registration is now open for our CPAN Virtual Advocacy Summit, which is on Wednesday, September 28th. It's free, share it with all your friends. It's a great day of learning. And what's going to happen during the summit is we're going to have national experts speaking about current hot topics in patient care, including understanding how health disparities and social determinants of health can impact healthcare. And you know that that's a very important topic. It's in the news all the time. It's in the media all the time. And what's really incredible about this session is that, again, something that is very unique to COA is our medical oncologists are practicing medical oncologists. This means that they're living the experience firsthand, and they're seeing the challenges that some of these patients that they're treating and serving are experiencing. So it's going to be just one of the many interesting sessions that day. We also talk a lot about quality cancer care. What is high quality cancer care? Are we all getting it? We assume we are, but we're going to learn from, again, a national expert on how we define quality cancer care. That day, our day of advocacy, learning, and education will also include biosimilars. This is another topic that I know you may have heard of. Some of you may be very well versed on this. Some of you may be new to the subject, but I'm excited to have a physician who will be giving his physician insight into the topic of biosimilars, and also an expert from another national cancer organization, basically giving us their two viewpoints. And there's a lot of overlap on why biosimilars are of value to patients. Many of you do know that COA is very well known and respected for our work on Capitol Hill. And a special shout out to the CPAN advocates that I've had the privilege of knowing and working with over the years, a decade plus, for the incredible work that they've done on Capitol Hill. They have been with us meeting with members of Congress, sharing their personal stories. And as we all know, cancer care is ultimately about the patient. So thank you to all the cancer survivors, patients, nurses, leaders, and doctors that worked with me over the years to bring those patients to Capitol Hill. Thank you. We will always appreciate and value your contributions to all those meetings. And just another quick side note, we are doing a sit in my chair event, which is when the members of Congress come to our practices. So for those of you who want to know more about that, we still have opportunities for you to invite your member of Congress. And this is another signature CPAN event that we've had a lot of success with over the years. So more on that topic later. Now, I just mentioned COA's reputation on Capitol Hill. So you'll hear from our Executive Director, Ted Ocon, and you'll also hear from other COA staffers about what is happening at the state level. And these, again, are national healthcare issues and state-based healthcare issues. And most importantly, what that means to the patient, because remember, we're patient-centered, we're about patient care. Now, as you can see just from the highlights of these sessions that I've given you, it's going to be a really good use of your time, because I always want your time to be respected, and that when you sign off from one of these monthly webinars, or you participate in our half-day events or our full-day events, that you walk away at least learning something new, or that you start thinking, oh, maybe I didn't know as much about this as I did, or I know more than I think. But one of the sessions, I'm trying not to be biased here, but I'll admit I might be a little bit biased, is bias is real. I'm really excited about one of our sessions that's going to feature two of our CPAN chapter advocacy leaders. And for those of you who may or may not know, our advocacy chapters are headed by oncology nurses or master's level social workers. And by the way, our guest today is one of those people who's a master of social worker. And they're going to really talk about how they have worked with me over the years, how they worked with COA, CPAN, in engaging physicians. Many of you know that we have an incredible board of the most talented, phenomenal doctors on the COA board. What many of you may not know is that through CPAN, we're also working with a lot of incredible physicians at the practice level. And a shout out to our CPAN chapter advocacy leaders for the work that they do with all the physicians that many of you do not know and do not see. But I see them and I know them, and they're great and doing great work. So it's going to be a great day. And of course, you'll learn how they engage with physicians and how they also engage with other members within the Cancer Center, and most importantly, their patients and survivors. Yes, so I'm going to say excited another time. And for anyone who's keeping count, I think I'm at 4 statements of saying I'm excited. So I'm excited to introduce our guest, Rose Gerber, who is the Director of Advocacy from CancerCare and has lots of credentials behind her name. Lauren, thank you for joining us, and we're ready to learn from you today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Rose. Thank you for that introduction. I am honored and excited to be here today. I'll be speaking about the psychosocial impact of cancer, specifically on families and communicating a cancer diagnosis to children. And then I'll be sharing cancer care support services and how to connect with us. So we can get started. All right, so the psychosocial impact of cancer on families and cancer care support services, it just mentioned, so we can go to the next slide. So, the psychosocial impact of a cancer diagnosis can begin as soon as someone is diagnosed with cancer. So, these initial thoughts and emotions of a cancer diagnosis kind of laid out here, just some ideas that may come up. So, those who have been diagnosed with cancer may have many mixed emotions, including fear, shock, denial, confusion, sadness. It can feel very overwhelming, and many people may be in disbelief to hear this news. The news can be very challenging to process and also takes time to process. Some common thoughts could include, am I going to die? What does this diagnosis mean for me? Why me? How did I get cancer? Did I cause it? Who will care for my loved ones, such as children, partners, parents, and other family members? Those diagnosed may be unsure of who they would like to share this with and how they will tell their family, friends, employers, and colleagues if they wish to do so. There may also be uncertainty regarding next steps, such as establishing a medical team, even different opinions, treatment options, and then also questioning financial security and paying for cancer related treatments, determining insurance coverage, as well as cancer related costs, such as getting to and from treatments, childcare, and other daily living expenses. And we can go to the next slide. An individual can be impacted by a cancer diagnosis in many ways. So, here's the ongoing impact of a cancer diagnosis, some ways that people may be impacted. So, to start, I'll just, highlight what I've bulleted here. So, there may be a change in physical appearance. Cancer and cancer treatment can cause changes to skin and hair, affecting how someone may look, as well as if there have been surgeries, potential scars. Could also be a change in demeanor and affect, how someone may behave or express their emotions. There may be change in movement and energy. This could be due to the cancer diagnosis itself, as well as treatments. And then experiencing additional symptoms of the disease and side effects of treatment. So, this could include discomfort, also focusing on pain management, and is, of course, important to continue to communicate with one's medical team regarding these symptoms and side effects that may come up. Also, another impact could be insecurity and diminished self esteem. So, this is a huge change and adjustment for an individual. Being diagnosed, going through treatment, it can be physically and emotionally draining. So, these changes can impact how someone may feel about themselves as well. If someone is working and needs to continue to work, they may question the ability of being able to fulfill job responsibilities. It's important to explore your rights as an employee and see what accommodations may be available. And Cancer Care offers resources regarding workplace concerns as well. And then also managing activities of daily living and adhering to one's treatment schedule and appointments. family and childcare concerns, which I'll go a little bit more into the family impact shortly. And then also the pressure of prior expectations and the idea of wanting to be normal in a sense that people may wish to be or feel, act the way they were before a cancer diagnosis. And then, as I mentioned, financial concerns, the ability, back to work, as well as one source of income, but also everyday expenses ranging from insurance coverage and other cancer related costs. And Rose, if there's anything that you'd like to add or any additional insight, any questions that have come up, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I think this is really great, and it's very interesting to me. It might be a coincidence or it might be intentional, but your very first bullet point, I'm sure a lot of cancer patients can relate to, and they're welcome to share their comments in the chat. Again, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'll share a personal experience on the change in physical appearance. Many times, cancer patients will lose their hair. Not every cancer patient. So this triggered again a memory is in my case, I lost a lot of weight during my cancer treatment. I mean, a lot of it I think was due to just extreme stress and anxiety. Of course, I didn't have the language for it at that time, but I lost a lot of weight. But when I got ready, when I got dressed, especially going to the doctor's office to go see my oncologist, I put on my wig, I put on my makeup, I put on nice clothes, I put on my earrings. I looked totally normal. And in fact, this is awkward to say out loud, but I would get a lot of compliments because I lost weight, and
Yeah.
everyone thought I looked great. People didn't know me. I was very private in the beginning. But at nighttime, when I was alone in my bedroom and I took off my wig and I took off my makeup and I had no eyebrows and I had no eyelashes, I was looking at a 12-year-old boy in the mirror. And I know that I'm not alone in feeling that. And that's the part I think that many people don't see. I know that my fellow cancer survivors see that. I know that they see that, they feel it. And that's kind of something, maybe it's a sensitivity issue. Maybe this is a learning experience for caregivers. That person can present themselves to you as if everything's okay and they look great. And a lot of them are continuing to work and take care of their duties, but they're actually struggling and they're going through a lot. So I think that's really important. And also, Lauren, going back to your first slide, I really appreciate that, you started off with just the emotions of cancer, because now with so many cancer survivors, it's easy to dismiss what it means to be diagnosed with cancer, and it's very overwhelming. And again, I know that my fellow survivors know that. So this is a very educational slide. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that personal story. And as you said, I think, many other people can relate to those feelings. Absolutely. And the impact of physical experience appearance can, really be a challenge for so many people.
It can certainly fool people and I think the really good oncology nurses and the really good doctors, they can see through it. And definitely your mom, if you call your mom and you say, oh, everything's fine, your mom's going to be like, no, it isn't, what's going on? Or a really good social worker, right, Lauren?
Yeah,
So we thank you for that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So we'll continue on to the family impact. So I mentioned several areas of how a cancer diagnosis may impact an individual. Now, going to focus a little bit more on families affected by cancer. So, the stress of a cancer diagnosis can absolutely impact the family as a whole in various ways. And then also, family members may be impacted in different ways individually. Different family members may respond differently, which could also be dependent upon someone's role within the family, whether being a child, a parent, partner. It can be difficult to know how to navigate as well as adjust to changes that can occur. So, a cancer diagnosis in the family can impact children's behavior, emotions, and overall well being. Can go next slide. Communicating with loved ones and discussing one's cancer diagnosis can be very challenging. So, initially, even being diagnosed before even, we consider speaking to children about a diagnosis, it's a very challenging thing to really even approach these conversations with anyone, what you'd like to share and how you'd like to share it, just with partner, family member, friends. And it can be additionally challenging in approaching these conversations with children because of that level of understanding, that comprehension, as well as how that could impact a child and what their thoughts and feelings may be around that, and just navigating that overall. So, as I'm discussing the impact of a cancer diagnosis on families, I'd like to highlight some ways in speaking to children about cancer and explaining a cancer diagnosis. So, approaching that first conversation with children can be daunting. Absolutely. It can be beneficial to discuss the cancer diagnosis as soon as possible when a parent guardian is comfortable in doing so. Children, we know they may pick up on cues and have, some sort of feeling that something is going on, but can't quite pinpoint it. So, really having that open communication and sharing that with them can also help with their level of anxiety and fear of what is actually going on. So, before speaking about the diagnosis, parents may consider some of these options that I laid out here. So, what they would like to share, preparing what will be said regarding the diagnosis details, and then the treatment that may follow, what the treatment will entail, and how to prepare a child for that. Then, when and where the conversation will take place, the time of day and the setting, such as will it be at home in a private, quiet space? And then who will be present during that conversation? What's most comfortable to you? What's most comfortable to your child or children? If this will be a one on one conversation, or parents and a child, or several family members, what really feels right to your family and your communication style as well. Your family's communication and what has been most beneficial in, approaching challenges or difficult conversations. And setting the tone, speaking in a calm and reassuring voice can help to set the tone of a conversation. However, we know this may not always be possible. It's okay to be upset and express sadness as well. There may be many mixed emotions a family may be feeling. And then asking professionals for guidance, such as an oncology social worker. This could be local support or through national organizations such as CancerCare, kind of tapping into additional resources and getting that guidance in approaching these conversations as well. And we can go next slide. In explaining a cancer diagnosis, it's important to use terms that children can best understand. This can be dependent upon a child's age as well as what a parent feels their child can comprehend. So, using words that are common and familiar, focusing on providing accurate information and being honest, although challenging, utilizing the term cancer, speaking about this word, it's different. A cancer diagnosis is, not a contagious illness or a cold that, maybe younger children may think of, a overall illness or sickness under this umbrella. But really cancer is, separate from that. And it's important for them to understand and identify cancer as something different than another disease, another sickness, illness. And also, recognizing that not everything needs to be shared in one conversation. Again, this can be dependent on a child's age, attention span, level of comprehension, but knowing that all the information does not need to be laid out in that one conversation. So it could be, the most important, information, the details, and then children may come back with questions that could be further, follow up and further conversations to speak about some of these topics that have come up for them and, what they're questioning. And it's also possible that parents and guardians may not have all the answers. They may not be able to answer these questions, immediately. And also may be unknown. Several things may be unknown. And if there's something that, parents can check on, they can share that they're going to, check in with the doctor and then go ahead and share, with the child what they have learned as well.
Lauren, I want to really again commend you for talking about children, because one of the really great things that has occurred in the conversations around cancer patients is there's a lot of emphasis on the importance of the caregiver. And we've had guests on our advocacy chat who talked about the challenges that caregivers face. And I think it's extremely hard to be a caregiver because a lot of times the cancer patient gets a lot of sympathy, but then the caregiver is also overwhelmed and they're not getting
Yes.
any resources. So that's been really addressed. But it's very rare that we talk about children. And I really love this bullet point about not everything needs to be shared at one conversation, because by the time the cancer patient has decided how they're going to share it, there might be that temptation to just kind of unload, but the child needs their own little digestible nuggets of information. But I did want to ask you something about, we're talking about children, but there's also the teenagers
Yeah.
who are, you know what, they're going to listen to their parents, but they're going to go straight to, social media. And right now, whether they're going to see something, on Twitter, or like TikTok has a lot of cancer patients and survivors sharing their stories. What kind of guidance do you see for the teenagers? Because they're different. They're not the adults, they're not the caregiver, the spouse, or the significant other, and they're not at this quote children age. So what kind of advice do you
Sure.
have for teenagers, or how's it different for teenagers?
Absolutely. So sharing about the diagnosis and, the level of understanding will definitely be different from younger children to adolescents and teens. And right, we're talking about children overall, but really also important to highlight, older children who we may identify as adolescents and teens. So that could be very different. So a few things to keep in mind at that point. We're talking. Through school age, and older, cancer may be part of the curriculum. They may hear, they may learn about cancer, through school. At that point, they may hear from peers as well. And then they may, see, as you mentioned, on social media, television shows, media overall. And, it's important to share that everyone's diagnosis is unique to themselves. And of course, when you think about cancer and what teens are seeing out there, they may assume that that is what, their parent may go through, or that is what may be going on, or what they can expect. But that may not be the case, and it is unique. Um, One thing, as you mentioned, a lot of older children, adolescents, teens may Google, just
Yeah.
look online, read, a bunch of different information that actually may not be totally applicable
Mhm.
to their loved one's diagnosis, which is very scary and can cause anxiety as well.
Yes.
So really honing in on, where they should be getting that information, having the conversations with parents and guardians of, each situation is different. Everyone's diagnosis is
Yeah.
unique to them.
Right. And it's interesting too, Lauren, because every cancer survivor decides to do their story very differently. There was a lot of people like me that were very, very private by choice at the time of diagnosis. And now I can think of several individuals that I've seen online, especially on TikTok, that are very sadly metastatic, stage 4. And I think they're providing incredible service by educating others, because that's what they choose. They choose to be very, very public about their current situation. But I also, one of them happens to be a parent, and and she's, been very open about her story, and her children are very, young. And I'm like, oh gosh, I hope that it's not overwhelming for them. But ultimately, every cancer patient has a right to choose how they want to handle their story, whether they're private or public. But thank you for sharing that, Lauren.
Absolutely. And just going into the way that the diagnosis can be shared. So here I included, for, a little bit younger, but we can recognize that additional details, may be shared as the child is older. So this can be adapted. And we do have some resources about this as well. But here's an example for simple and concrete terms. So something along the lines as mom is sick with an illness called cancer. The cancer happened on its own. Nobody did anything to make it happen. My doctors are doing the best they can to take care of me, and I'm going to do everything possible to get better. So you are providing that reassurance, but also we can't necessarily say that everything is you know going to go extremely well, and that's the hope, but we want to continue to have that open communication with children throughout, and what's comfortable to the family, and depending upon how children are responding. And then for older, this may be a little bit more detailed, so going into a little bit more of the specific diagnosis, the treatments, and as children are older, they may have additional questions as well, naturally.
I really like that the part that you included about cancer happened on its own because, again, as I shared, I told very few people, but I'll never forget when I did share my diagnosis with this one individual who was another elementary school mom at the time. She basically goes, "Oh my gosh," she's like, "Do you drink Diet Coke? I see you drinking a lot of Diet Coke. What kind of laundry detergent do you use? Do you use organic?" And I was so new. I knew nothing about advocacy. I knew nothing about cancer, and I was just literally an absolute mess. I mean, I just like held myself together, but then I just went home and probably cried for 10 hours because I was like, oh my God, maybe I did do something to myself, which is ridiculous. But that is so powerful. It happened on its own. Cancer is a very, very complex disease. So that's great that
Absolutely.
you included that. That's a perfect description.
Absolutely. And, even with that, it's really hard. Just want to mention it's hard to hear from other people and their input and kind of
Yeah,
sifting through to like what's important, what's applicable to you. And sometimes when people are diagnosed, they just hear so much from everyone else. It's like, what is actually, what does really pertain to me,
yeah,
and how can I best care for myself?
yeah.
And that can be different person to person as well.
But I think that's why it's important too that cancer survivors do go to the experts. It's okay, people may have their opinion, but I was completely rattled at that time when it's like, oh my gosh,
Definitely.
I don't use organic laundry detergent, and well, I
Mm.
do run the air conditioner a lot. All these things that she was just throwing at me in like in like a 10-minute time span. It's so thank you, Lauren.
Definitely. And then, just also preparing and addressing changes that may occur, and how this may impact children, spanning to teens as well, such as their daily routine, who will be caring for them, younger, who will be picking them up from school or bring them to different activities, and then a little bit older, who will be helping out with these day-to-day responsibilities, and, will there be more responsibility on, older children in the house? How can everyone be helping out a little bit? What does that look like for older children as well? And with that, I just wanted to mention a little bit, because we have talked about the range of ages, just about developmental stages. So, just in regards to the understanding of a cancer diagnosis. So, when we think about, very young, so say birth to 3 years old, you know, this age, not understanding cancer, but they may sense a change in daily routine or separation from the parent. As we get a little bit older, 3 to 7 or so, may understand cancer in simple terms. Also needing that assurance that they didn't cause the cancer, that it's not their fault, and that it's not contagious. At this point in time, they this age may display magical thinking, so that they
Oh,
did something that caused that,
mm,
or increase the stress of a parent, or whatever it may be. And then a little bit older, say 7 to 12, can understand more detailed explanation of cancer, less likely to believe they did something to cause it, more likely to understand the role of medicine in treatment, and will start to have more access to that outside info that we mentioned, as they're getting older. And then 13 to 18, more of a complex understanding of cancer. So they may think of cancer in terms of its symptoms and the impact on daily life. Here, as we said, we'll get more information from many sources, and then understanding the relationship between symptoms and the role of treatment. And may also want to have more involvement, and even ask about these decisions that are happening with treatment, and what's going on with mom, dad, and what's up ahead. Okay, next slide. When a family member or parent is diagnosed with cancer, it'll be unknown how long families will be managing cancer related concerns. So the impact of a cancer diagnosis doesn't conclude when treatment does. There are many adjustments that can continue to occur, such as lingering side effects or returning back to work, a change in family's routine and schedule. And then it's important to continue to openly communicate about the impact the diagnosis can continue to have on families. Being honest, even if the news is not always good, making sure children hear good or bad news directly from parents, guardians, if possible. And the source is very important in maintaining that overall trust in the relationship. Next slide. So this leads us into emotional support. As we've talked about, a cancer diagnosis is very overwhelming. So additional support for families can be helpful as they face new challenges together. So support services are available to those impacted by cancer, including children. So this can range from individualized counseling services to group support, local, national organizations. And throughout the support, really focusing on encouraging children to express their current feelings and concerns, being mindful of any emotional changes in children that might indicate they are stressed from worry, discussing outlets children can utilize when feeling upset or overwhelmed. This could be creative outlets, art, physical activity such as sports, and then allowing space for children to feel heard, having that space available for children, even if there are continued check-ins or family time, just having that open space available to them. Modeling and explaining aspects of self-care, so determining beneficial coping mechanisms individually as well as a family, and continuing to instill one's foundation as a family and approaching challenges as a team. So supporting one another and being there for one another as you continue to move forward is so important. And we can go to the next slide. So, with emotional support, I do want to share a little bit about the support services CancerCare offers. So, I know Rose mentioned a little bit about CancerCare at the start here today, but CancerCare is a national nonprofit organization providing free professional support services and information to help people manage the emotional, practical, and financial challenges of cancer. Our comprehensive services include case management, counseling and support groups, educational workshops, publications, and limited financial assistance. So here, just pulling out a few, of our national services. So our case management services focus on a short-term strength-based approach where the case manager will work with the client in connecting them to resources, referrals, and financial assistance. We have online support groups, which are password protected, message board format led by oncology social workers. We have coping circles, which are national virtual workshops addressing psychosocial and psychoeducational concerns. And we also have a children's program, Cancer Care for Kids, which provides support to children, adolescents, teens affected by cancer. We do have a dedicated page on our website outlining these services related to the program, including reading material, podcasts, resources, and practical programs. And we do offer individual counseling and live support groups to those living in New York and New Jersey. And as you can see, we have a wide array of services. So and as I didn't highlight each one specifically, but please, call us and, take a look at our website. So leading into the last slide, I believe, to get in touch with us. So we have our national Hope line to speak to an oncology social worker. So by calling our Hope line, you can speak to a social worker about all the available services, what may be available to you as far as, counseling support if you're local to us, as well as registering for national programs. And then we do have a lot of resources and reading material, as well as listing out our programs on our website as well. So I will go ahead and turn it back to Rose.
Thank you, Lauren. This is incredible. And I guess this is why, Cancer Care has been around for 75 years. So many great services. This has been very educational. And I must say, you have a very soothing voice.
Thank you so much.
So thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our listeners. I'm going to close with what I started with. Don't miss our virtual advocacy summit on Wednesday, September 28th. Go to the website. The registration's live. It's free. Share it with everyone you know. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And most importantly, enjoy these last few weeks of summer. Thank you for being with us today.